Today I'm going to show you a fabulous haul of vintage fabric from the 1940s and pieces from the 1930s too. I'm going to show you some rather wonderful vintage embroidered and beaded appliques that I also have. I'll start by showing you the fabric. And when you find vintage fabrics, they're very often printed. So I do try and buy vintage where I can, but for the beaded appliques, the embroidered beaded appliques, I might need to buy some plain fabric. But let's start with what I bought. To begin with, perhaps we should start with doggy fabric. This is from Tuppence Halfpenny, who sells on Etsy, and she also copies and also does her own novelty prints, which she sells on Spoonflower. So her original vintage is on Etsy, and her own range of vintage and vintage inspired prints is on Spoonflower. This I got from her Etsy shop, and of course I'll show you close so you can see why I had to get it, because Scotty dogs. And I also bought, not from her, but I thought I'll just show you, I'll do a close-up probably, Scotty dog buttons. And I also got from Tuppence Halfpenny fabulous striped fabric. And I'm not sure what dress pattern I'm going to use for all the fabrics, but for the striped pattern, I do have this pattern. And I thought, oh, that would be perfect. And also I have some charcoal grey cotton for the details. So I thought, well, that would be lovely. My other one from Tuppence Halfpenny is this. And again, I'll show you close up. Rather wonderful figurative novelty print from the 1940s. So I'll probably do a house dress of some kind with that one. Perhaps some kind of matching turban or headscarf or something like that. While I'm on Tuppence Halfpenny, I'll show you this fabric that I've been wanting for ages, but I've never ordered from Spoonflower because I'm in the UK and the custom charges from America are a bit prohibitive. But there was a 20% sale on the fabric, which I saw on Tuppence Halfpenny's Instagram, so I thought now is my time to buy these fabrics. So the ones that I am talking about are the Spitfire Design, and I know already what I'm going to make. I'm going to make this pattern, which is a hooded blouse and overalls or dungarees to go over it, and I think the hooded blouse in a pale blue version of the Spitfire Design, and the overalls or dungarees in the darker blue. And I'm going to do that this spring, so hopefully those will be nice. And then I also got from Tuppence Halfpenny this really sweet novelty print of a delivery boy with his parcels, his heart-shaped hat boxes and things. You're huffing. No huffs, no puffs. No huffs into the microphone. No huffies. If you've bought from Spoonflower, which I don't know if I'll ever do again because the customs charge it is a lot. You can choose which fabric. So I got a cotton drill and a Tana lawn, so I can make some culottes or skirts or something in the cotton drill and then have the blouse in a matching design but different fabrics. And then I have got, this is a true vintage 40s one, and this came from Donna Flower Fabrics, and you can see it's got a lovely abstracty botanical print. So I think what to do with that one. And I also got, this is a kind of silky rayon, very pretty. These are all spring and summer kind of designs. I've got a tiny amount of this one, actually remnant, that there wasn't even enough to make a little blouse, so it will have to be details on something else with a matching fabric. I do have a charcoal cotton, so maybe I'll just use that in a kind of colour block design with a plain print. Oh yes, and I have, these were 1930 30s, I would say. I mean, this was advertised as 30s. I would say late 30s, early 40s. 2 little pieces, probably enough for a dress. Very colourful and jolly. She collects a lot of 30s painted china, very, very similar designs to this. And I'm quite excited about this because my my grandmother loved polka dots. It just seems like something that she would love. And it's 30s, 40s, gorgeous green polka dot fabric, silky rayon, quite a lot of it, definitely enough for a dress, so it'd be lovely. And I got this 30s, 40s fabric, pink. Now, I love pink. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best colour on me, so I might do something culottes or skirt something away from my face, or put a colour with it, like the kind of charcoal grey, which suits me better. But it's just such a wonderful, to me it looks like a 30s design, and I think that would just be really, if you want to go to sleep, and I think that will just be really pretty. Oh yes, now this, pretty, isn't it, Pixie? This, I can see, I mean, it's a 40s print. Oh, come back to life. It's a 40s print, and it's so classically pretty 40s. I think I can see lots of dresses I might make up for the summer in that, with perhaps a little contrast binding. Be very pretty, won't it? Yes, pretty, like my dogs. What else? I know there's quite a lot, isn't there? And I got this pretty blue, and I'll do something kind of blue and white, I thought, with that one. And I got something from Flania's Vintage Clothing. She's on Etsy, and she's also come up with some fabrics recently. And she had a lot of this one that I'll show you, which is black with this like embossed design. And then I also got from the 1980s, but I have a weakness for Laura Ashley. And my favourite flower are sweet peas, and I thought it's so pretty. And I already think I'll probably make this, you know, I made them in the summer, last summer, from Atana Liberty Lawn. They're really kind of baggy, swishy. I think they'll be lovely, and I can wear like a blue or pink or cream top with them, can't I? Yes, walk my collies. And I also have little precious bits of fabric that I need to decide what to do with. This is one I'll show you. And I got a piece of something rather precious at the Antique Textile Fair in Chelsea. It's from the 1930s, and you can see it's a panel, rather beautiful. I obviously have no intention whatsoever of cutting into it, and it could just be a scarf or some kind of, like, I could easily tack it on to make a top or something, but it's going to need a lot of thinking about, because you can see it's rather special. I also have, it's like a piece, I think it's fabric that's been cut off a hem, because it's been hemmed and it seams, and it's like literally a strip. See the close up, it's been cut off a hem, but it is such a gorgeous print of these like ribbon umbrellas, but as I say, just a strip. So I will have a think about how to use that strip, obviously probably against a plain fabric, to show it off. And part of this recent fabric haul was this fabric from Donna Flowers, which you can see has already been made up into something that you'll be seeing more of next week. And this is a fabric I've had for a while. It's a CC41 utility scheme fabric, i.e. one of the fabrics that were produced during the war rationing years. And I bought it from Vintage Quinn on Instagram. And I can't remember where I got these wonderful embellishments from, but you can see how they pick up that salmon pink colour of the fabric, and I haven't decided quite what I'm going to do with them yet, but I thought those embellishments and perhaps a little cream lace collar like this one too, perhaps a dress pattern, something like this I'm thinking of. And then I also wanted to make some lingerie, excuse me for not having done any ironing before this. And this is a silky rayon fabric, especially for lingerie, from Donna Flower Fabrics. I'll probably make some kind of 1930s style slip. And look at this little applique girl. She is so sweet and pretty and perfect for decorating perhaps a pocket. And I also have this little sequined and beaded applique which I got from the Vintage Sewing Nook on Instagram. And I mean, I can't remember where I bought these, but look at this rather amazing, it's a collar and pocket set, and I probably got them from number 6 Vintage Design on Etsy, because I have bought a lot of little beaded appliques and embroidered appliques from her. They're mostly from the 1920s and 1930s, and you will be seeing some more coming up. And you can see how effective that beaded collar with the beaded pockets would be on a dress. And definitely these were also from number 6 Vintage Design on Etsy. And they're from the 1930s, and you can see these lovely embroidered silky peacock appliques. And I'm thinking they need to go on some kind of velvet house robe or something like that. And then a sweet little collar from the Vintage Sewing Nook. And these embroidered applique pansies I absolutely adore. I got them from Etsy, but I'm afraid I don't have a record of what seller. They weren't actually a vintage sewing seller, but they just had these randomly from the 1940s, I think they came from. But number 6 Vintage Design often sells appliques very much like these, and I wouldn't use them all at once on a dress. I will use just one on perhaps a bodice or a shoulder to decorate the dress. And these I got from the Vintage Sewing Nook, and you can see they come on these beautiful French vintage cards. It's almost impossible to think of pulling them off the cards. The seller actually had quite a few of these, and it was really hard to choose which ones to have. They are rather special. And here is an amazing beaded piece. I would say it comes from a 1920s dress, perhaps the fabric disintegrated, and I think I just got it on eBay. And this gorgeous dual coloured wool embroidered on net applique I bought at a vintage textile fair, which I love going to those. And I also bought at a vintage textile fair, and see £3.50, what a bargain. This little, I suppose it would be a decoration for the top of a pocket. And I also have, this was an Etsy buy, but I'm afraid I don't remember the seller, but what a beautiful 1930s lace. It's not so much a collar, it's more a jabot, I think. So one of the things that you will have noticed about the 1940s vintage fabrics is that a lot of them have prints, not all, but a lot have prints that you can cut the pattern pieces out in any direction. And that's no coincidence. That's because there was fabric rationing, and obviously it saves on fabric if you're not having to pattern match or or put the pieces so that the fabric lies in one direction. So that's something that you will often see in fabrics produced during the war years, along with the fact that they are a narrower width than today's fabrics. I tend to use vintage patterns with vintage fabrics, so the pattern yardage given is fairly accurate, but if you are using a modern pattern with vintage fabric, you could find that you have less fabric than you think. Oh, and the other thing to say about vintage fabrics is that there was a definite difference in the feel of my vintage fabrics and the feel of my modern fabrics. And that difference is definitely around softness and drapiness. The modern fabrics, nothing wrong with them, but they have kind of harder texture. They don't have that floppy, drapey quality. And of course, that drapey quality is exactly why rayon of the 30s and 40s is now so desirable. Sometimes I've heard people say, oh, why don't they make it anymore? In fact, the chemicals used in the production of that vintage rayon had a really bad effect on the health of people working in those rayon factories. So there is a good reason why it's not made anymore quite like that, but it does mean that you won't find the same fabric characteristics in modern day rayons. I mean, they can still be lovely, but they won't be quite the same. So I have so many plans for my vintage fabrics, and I also want to experiment with and show you some vintage sewing techniques as well as vintage pattern drafting techniques. So I hope that you will join me in the weeks to come, and please like this video and consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.